I thought that he was going to rape me. I was twisting, and I was struggling, and I was begging him to stop. He said, "You're just a child." And he said, "I am the district attorney of Etowah County. And if you tell anyone about this, no one will ever believe you."
That is Beverly Young Nelson. Today, she became the 5th woman to accuse Alabama Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore of sexual misconduct. And like the other 4 women, Nelson says she was a teenager at the time. Moore would have been in his 30s, a county prosecutor. He's still denying all of the allegations, and just moments before Nelson went public, in fact, his campaign team sent out this statement. Have a look. Judge Moore is an innocent man and has never had any sexual misconduct with anyone. This is a witch hunt against a man who has had an impeccable career for over 30 years and has always been known as a man of high character. Now, Moore seems set on staying in the race for a Senate seat, but tonight, a growing number of Republicans are calling on him to step aside. As CBC's Keith Bogue tells us, the scandal has further divided the party.
Beverly Young Nelson wasn't simply the 5th woman to make an allegation about inappropriate contact from an adult when she was a teenager. She brought a new level of gravity to the allegations against Roy Moore.
He began squeezing my neck, attempting to force my head onto his crotch. I continued to struggle. I was determined that I was not going to allow him to force me to have sex with him. I was terrified.
Young Nelson was 16 at the time, but what she described is a crime regardless of her age. It is a violent sexual assault.
I believe the women, yes.
Even before Young Nelson spoke, Senate Republicans were abandoning Moore, most notably the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
I think he should step aside.
Are you encouraging a write-in campaign with Senator Strange?
That's an option we're looking at, whether or not there is someone who could mount a write-in campaign successfully.
Here's what could happen and why it's important. Roy Moore's name will appear on the ballot December 12th, no matter what happens. It's too late to take it off, even if he did drop out of the race. Republicans might decide to back a write-in candidate. That's someone whose name isn't on the ballot. Voters would just write it in themselves. But that could split the Republican vote, and the result might be that the Democratic candidate, Doug Jones, wins the seat. Andrew?
And Keith, let's just pick up on that last point, because you'd have to look back pretty far. I mean, 1992, I believe, to find a Democrat winning a Senate seat in Alabama. So that'd be historic. But what would it mean for Republicans if Roy Moore, say, decides to stay on and he wins?
Well, for the first time today, Andrew, they began talking about that. And they seem to suggest that if Roy Moore were to run and to win, their next move might be to try to expel him. It would take 66 votes in the Senate to do that, but they could do it. But consider, the Republican Party is already deeply divided by civil war. And what they would be doing by expelling Roy Moore would essentially be acting as the establishment to remove an anti-establishment candidate who had just been duly elected by the people of Alabama. Andrew?
Keith Bogue joining us from Washington. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Now, one positive to come out of all of this is that it has started a conversation. And online, people have been coalescing around a new hashtag to show that 14 is too young to be able to give consent. It started with a lawyer in North Carolina named Catherine Lawson. She tweeted this photo of herself last Thursday using the hashtag #MeAt14. Since then, thousands of people have tweeted their own photos and shared stories showing just how young 14 really is. People like Ambrosia Parsley, who writes, "I sang in the choir. I ran away from home. I was still afraid of the dark, and I'd never been kissed." Another woman says, "I babysat, listened to records in my room, went to the mall and roller skating rink with my girlfriends, still had a crush on Donny Osmond. Sex? Never heard of it." Celebrities have been adding their voices too, from actor Alyssa Milano and comedian Sarah Silverman to journalists Gretchen Carlson and Katie Couric.